Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq, with daily insight on the Nasdaq-100 index, or the NDX, which is made up of 100 of the largest domestic and international non-financial innovative companies listed right here on the Nasdaq stock market. The NDX has been the barometer for U.S. large cap growth and also one of the best performing indexes over the last decade and a half, not to mention one of the most liquid index ecosystems in the world. Joining me this Thursday afternoon is Joyce, Managing Director on Nasdaq's Market Intelligence Desk, for an update on technical levels to watch in the Nasdaq-100. And Brian, a lot has happened since we spoke last Thursday. Finally, some volatility back into the market here.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been inflationary data that came out at the end of last week with the CPI, I think on Wednesday, the PPI on Thursday, both above expectations. So rates, spiked higher. It's just creating a lot of volatility, growth versus value, rotation going back and forth because of that. And the NDX, along with a lot of the individual sectors and individual companies and other broader benchmarks, but it's just been pretty volatile ride, and obviously the cryptocurrency space was leading that charge in volatility, especially in the last 24-48 hours.
Yeah, it's been interesting in the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and altcoin space, that's for sure. And I also think it's interesting, Brian, that the crypto conversation is coming into risk appetite in the equity markets. That's not something we've heard about before. We've heard of Bitcoin being compared to an inflation trade as the new gold and so forth, but never when it comes into risk appetite as it relates to equities. So with that said, let's pull up your first chart here. Walk us through technical levels you're looking at in the Nasdaq-100, because certainly a different set of numbers than we saw last week.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I like to look at rising trend lines just as a gauge of what the actual trend is over a longer term period. I don't normally use them so much as specific support levels, but what is interesting is the recent pullback that we did see in the NDX did stop almost exactly on this trend line, and I haven't touched this in over a week when we last spoke. And this was the level, or the area, I would say is a better way to put it, that I was looking to really figure out whether or not I thought a bigger trend change was underway. I know a lot of individual companies have seen pretty dramatic declines, some down 30-40%, but the benchmark, the NDX, the Nasdaq-100, it's down, I think, declined 7.5% from its recent high. And given what's going on out there in the marketplace amongst other asset classes like crypto and individual stocks, this is a relatively modest pullback, in particularly given the prior uptrend, which is just a phenomenal bull market move. So the trend is your friend, and the uptrend is still underway. We're bouncing higher today. We're leading the market today and yesterday. That's nice to see. Rates are relatively in check as well. And so as far as specific levels go, it's right around this zone here, right around that 14,000 level. To the upside, we're looking at 14,050, 14,100. And on the downside, I'd say around 13.7. So that 300, 400 point range, these prior highs right here, that's really where we want to see the index get back above.
All right.
Go ahead.
Yep. And I know you also want to take a look at some, it looks like you're going for a longer term chart here, but I know you want to look at the Russell also.
Yeah, so this is just a weekly period chart. And, initially we were looking at this as a cup and handle, and we had the sideways consolidation like the handle normally would see. And then that did break down the last couple of weeks. It pulled back. But this week where, if you're looking at your candlestick patterns, this is, a bullish piercing line where the range, the body range, the open close range of this week is thus far, above the midpoint of last week. So this potentially is a 2-week bottoming pattern. So, still early to make that call. We'll have to see how tomorrow plays out and if there's any confirmation next week. But, to me, the bigger trend is still to the upside. And if you look at the weekly momentum indicator, RSI has not made any lower lows. So momentum is still in favor as well. It's certainly slowed down quite a bit, particularly if you look at the daily period, but over the longer term weekly period, momentum is still holding that bullish level, has not made a lower low. Regarding the Russell, this is the ratio of the value versus growth index, and we had a multi-year move for quite a long time to the downside. We bottomed in the middle of 2020, and now over the last 2 or 3 quarters, as value has been outperforming growth, we're seeing this turn around and make what some consider to be in the early stages of a big performance of value outperforming growth, and that certainly may be the case. We'll have to just wait and see. Time will tell. But notice the recent rebound in value. It did bounce off a technical support level, and the ratio is moving higher. But it's stalling again right where it peaked in March. And so that tells you that, the outperformance of value over growth over the last week or so has taken a breather. What's interesting is that this level around here, if we go back to a 25-year monthly period, so really long term, it's just interesting that we're seeing this pause in the rebound of value over growth taking place at a prior significant low, which was back in early 2000. So I'm kind of curious to see if this is something that creates resistance going forward over a period of time. If so, then and we'd see this ratio resume to the downside, and this is just simply a counter trend rally, and the bigger long-term trend to the downside is still intact, then we'll see growth outperform value. So this is a long-term period chart, so it's going to take some time to see how this plays out. But it's just noteworthy that the daily period chart is taking place right around this level, which was a significant low from 2000. This pause right here. So that's something I think we should keep an eye out for going forward.
All right, Brian, appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks, and thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.